It's August 17th, 1571. The sun beats down mercilessly on a plaza in Famagusta, Cyprus. You're standing in a crowd of Ottoman soldiers, their faces twisted with anticipation, eyes gleaming with something between excitement and cruelty. At the center of the square, tied naked to a stone column, is a man named Mark Antonio Bragadin, Venetian commander, defender of this city for 11 brutal months. He's been tortured methodically for 2 weeks. His ears have been cut off. His nose has been cut off. His wounds are festering, crawling with flies. And now, as he whispers prayers through cracked, bleeding lips, the executioner approaches with a knife. What happens next is so horrific that when the news reaches Europe, it doesn't just anger people, it ignites them like gunpowder. They flay him alive, strip the skin from his body while he's still breathing, still conscious, still praying. Then they stuff his skin with straw and cotton, dress it carefully in his military uniform with all his insignia, and parade it through the streets mounted on an ox like some grotesque trophy. His skin becomes a message, a declaration that the Ottoman Empire is unstoppable, that resistance is futile, that Christian Europe should tremble. Before we dive into the battle that changed everything, smash that like button and subscribe to Maproom Battles for the stories that actually decided history. Comment, where are you watching from? But here's what Sultan Selim II doesn't understand. In that moment of savage triumph, he's just made the biggest tactical mistake of the century. Because that skinned corpse dangling from a Turkish galley is about to unite a fractured continent that has spent decades bickering while the Ottoman tide rose. 2 months later, on October 7th, 1571, the largest naval battle since ancient Rome will explode in the waters of Greece. 200 Christian warships will face nearly 300 Ottoman galleys. And when the smoke clears and the blood stops flowing, the myth of Ottoman invincibility will lie shattered on the seafloor alongside 20,000 bodies. This is the story of Lepanto, the turning point. The moment when a divided, terrified Christian Europe finally said, "Enough. Let's go back. Let's understand what was really at stake." Here's what you need to understand about 1571. The Ottoman Empire isn't just powerful, it's a juggernaut that has devoured kingdoms for breakfast for 200 years. Constantinople fell in 1453, that glittering jewel of Byzantine Christianity. The city that stood for 1,000 years, crushed in 53 days. The Greeks who escaped fled west carrying their books, their knowledge, their trauma. They helped spark the Renaissance. But they also carried a warning: the Turks are coming, and they cannot be stopped. Hungary gone. Most of it absorbed after the catastrophic Battle of Mohacs in 1526, where the flower of Hungarian nobility drowned in marshes fleeing Ottoman cavalry. The Balkans, Ottoman territory. North Africa, Ottoman territory. The Eastern Mediterranean, an Ottoman lake. They've besieged Vienna twice. They've raided the Italian coast so frequently that coastal villages have been abandoned permanently. Their corsairs have captured slaves from as far as Iceland and Ireland. And here's the thing that keeps Christian rulers awake at night, staring at ceiling frescoes. The Ottomans aren't just winning battles, they're organized, disciplined, professional. They have the Janissaries' elite soldiers taken as children from Christian families through the Devshirme system, converted to Islam, trained from childhood to be the finest infantry in the world. These aren't conscripts or mercenaries. These are professional soldiers who live in barracks, train constantly, use firearms when most European armies still rely on pikes and crossbows. They have superior numbers at any given time. The Sultan can mobilize armies that dwarf anything a single European kingdom can field. They have interior lines of communication. They control the landmass. So they can move troops and supplies faster than European states coordinating across the sea. They have a unified command structure, answering to one man, the Sultan. No bickering parliaments. No feudal lords refusing to send troops. One will, one vision, one empire. Meanwhile, Christian Europe is a fractured mess of competing interests that seem more interested in destroying each other than facing the common threat. Spain and Venice hate each other. Centuries of commercial rivalry, territorial disputes, mutual contempt. France is secretly allied with the Ottomans because King Francis I decided that weakening the Habsburgs mattered more than defending Christendom. The Pope is trying to organize a coalition, but it's like herding cats made of knives. The Protestant Reformation has split the continent down religious fault lines. The Holy Roman Empire is distracted by internal politics and the Turkish threat on its own borders. England is Protestant now and couldn't care less about Mediterranean affairs. Everyone's fighting everyone else, and the Ottomans are exploiting every division with surgical precision. So when Sultan Selim II, known as Selim the Drunkard by some, Selim the Sought by others, but still dangerous, still ambitious, decides he wants Cyprus, there's not much Venice can do about it alone. Cyprus is isolated, valuable, strategically crucial. It controls the Levantine trade routes. It produces cotton and sugar profitably. It's a wealthy colony, and it's surrounded by Ottoman territory on three sides. As one historian put it, the island is in the wolf's mouth. The Venetians know what's coming. Their spies in Constantinople send warning after warning throughout early 1570. The Sultan is building a fleet. He's assembling an army. The target is Cyprus. Venice tries diplomatic solutions desperately. They offer tribute. They offer territorial concessions. The Ottomans refuse flatly. Sultan Selim wants the island, and he believes it rightfully belongs to the empire. Venice holds it only as a tributary in his view, and that arrangement has expired. The legal justification doesn't matter. What matters is power, and the Ottomans have it. In July 1570, 80,000 Ottoman troops land on Cyprus from a fleet of 400 ships. They have siege engineers, miners, sappers, specialists in urban warfare. They have cannons cast in the imperial foundries of Constantinople, massive bronze tubes that can hurl stone balls weighing hundreds of pounds. They have supplies, reinforcements, momentum. The Venetian garrisons are scattered across the island, undersupplied, unprepared for an assault of this magnitude. The local Greek population, oppressed for decades by Venetian Catholic rule, largely welcomes the Ottomans as liberators. The Venetians had been harsh overlords, heavy taxes, religious persecution of Orthodox Christians. economic exploitation. Now that's coming back to haunt them. Nicosia, the capital, is the first target. It's ringed by new fortifications, modern angular bastions designed by Italian engineers who understand the latest principles of defensive architecture. But the garrison is only 6,000 men against over 100,000 attackers. The siege begins in late July. Ottoman cannons fire thousands of rounds every day. The walls crack. Defenders patch them desperately with earth and timber. The Ottomans dig approach trenches, getting closer and closer under covering fire. They build siege towers, rolling them forward. On September 9th, after 2 months of relentless bombardment, the walls are finally breached. Ottoman troops pour through the gap like a flood bursting a dam. What follows is a massacre. 20,000 people are killed in the sack. The streets run literally with blood. Women and children are taken as slaves. The city is looted, burned. The defenders who surrendered are executed anyway. The head of Niccolò Dandolo, the island's governor, is cut off and sent to the last remaining Venetian stronghold as a message. This is what awaits you. That stronghold is Famagusta, and its commander is Marc Antonio Bragadin. Famagusta shouldn't have survived a week by any rational calculation. 8,500 defenders against over 100,000 Ottoman troops, backed by 1,500 cannons, and a naval blockade of 150 warships. No reinforcements coming. Venice is too slow, too divided, too weak to organize relief in time. No supplies arriving. The blockade is airtight. No hope of relief. Just walls and courage, and the certain knowledge that surrender means death anyway. Bragadin knows this. He's a Venetian patrician, born into wealth and privilege, trained as a lawyer before joining the military. He's middle experienced, calm under pressure. When he receives Dandolo's severed head in a basket, he doesn't panic. He doesn't despair. He fortifies. He plans. He prepares his men for the longest fight of their lives. The fortifications of Famagusta are state-of-the-art. The Martinengo Bastion is a masterpiece of military architecture, angular bastions that eliminate blind spots, thick earthen ramparts that absorb cannon fire rather than shattering, overlapping fields of fire. The walls were designed by the best engineers in Europe. If anywhere on Cyprus can hold, it's here. The siege begins on September 17th, 1570. Lala Mustafa Pasha, the Ottoman commander, is under immense pressure. He's already spent 2 months taking Nicosia. The Sultan expects Cyprus to fall quickly, decisively. Mustafa can't afford another long siege. His reputation, his career, possibly his life depends on swift success. So he throws everything at Famagusta. The bombardment is relentless, systematic. Ottoman artillery fires day and night. The walls shake. Buildings collapse. Dust fills the air. But Bragadin's men rebuild faster than the Ottomans can destroy. They stuff breaches with earth and timber. They mount counter-batteries and fire back. They organize sorties, small raiding parties that slip out at night, attack Ottoman positions, kill engineers, burn siege equipment, then retreat before the Turks can respond. Weeks turn into months. October, November, December, the cold sets in. Disease spreads through both camps. The Ottomans lose thousands to dysentery, Dod fever, infected wounds. But they keep coming. Fresh troops arrive from Anatolia, from Syria, from Egypt. The siege becomes a grinding war of attrition. In January 1571, something remarkable happens. A Venetian commander named Marco Quirini breaks through the Ottoman blockade with 12 galleys and 4 sailing ships, carrying 1,700 reinforcements. It's a suicide mission, threading through enemy warships in winter seas. But Quirini is bold, skilled, lucky. He lures Ottoman galleys into an ambush, sinks 3 of them, and gets his ships into the harbor. For 3 weeks, he raids the coast, destroying Ottoman fortifications, capturing supply ships, boosting morale. Then he slips away again, heading to Crete to gather more reinforcements. But more reinforcements never come. Venice is paralyzed by indecision. Spain is reluctant to help. The Holy League hasn't been formed yet. Famagusta is alone. The months grind on. February, March, April, May. The defenders are eating rats, leather, anything remotely edible. Ammunition is running low. Cannons wear out from constant firing. Men die from starvation as often as from Ottoman bullets. The garrison shrinks to a few thousand, exhausted, starving soldiers. But they hold. Every assault is repulsed. The Ottomans try tunneling under the walls, medieval siege warfare combined with modern artillery. Bragadin's miners counter-tunnel, breaking into Ottoman tunnels and fighting vicious underground battles in absolute darkness. They collapse tunnels with explosives. They flood them with water. In July, the Ottomans finally breach the fortifications. Troops pour through the gap, flooding into the citadel. For a few terrible hours, it looks like the end. But Bragadin personally leads a counterattack, rallying his exhausted men, driving the Ottomans back at horrific cost. The breach is sealed with rubble and bodies. Lala Mustafa Pasha is going insane with frustration. He's lost his eldest son in the fighting. He's lost 50,000 men to disease, combat, accidents. His reputation is shattered. The Sultan is sending angry letters demanding results. And this damned Venetian city still stands. Think about what Bragadin has accomplished against impossible odds. 11 months. 50,000 Ottoman casualties. He's tied down the entire invasion force, preventing it from raiding elsewhere, buying precious time for the Holy League to finally, slowly, painfully assemble. He's inflicted more damage on the Ottoman Empire than any European force in decades, but it can't last. By August 1st, 1571, the garrison is down to 900 men. Most are wounded. All are starving. There's no ammunition left. The walls are rubble held together by prayers. Bragadin knows it's over. He asks for terms of surrender. Lala Mustafa Pasha, desperate to end this nightmare siege, agrees. The Venetians can leave with honor. Safe passage to Crete. The Greeks can stay or leave as they choose. The standards of war will be observed. No reprisals. For 4 days, the evacuation proceeds smoothly. The sick and wounded are carried to ships. Civilians pack their belongings. The Ottomans watch but don't interfere. It seems like it's going to end honorably. Then comes August 5th, the formal surrender ceremony. Bragajin, accompanied by his senior officers, walks calmly to Mustafa Pasha's tent to hand over the keys to the city. He's wearing his finest uniform, his crimson robe of office. He's walking with dignity. Mustafa Pasha receives him, and then suddenly, without warning, the Ottoman commander explodes in rage. He accuses Bragadin of murdering Turkish prisoners during the siege, of hiding munitions, of deceiving him. None of it is true, or if some of it is true, it's the normal brutality of siege warfare that both sides have committed. But Mustafa doesn't care about truth. He cares about humiliation, about the 50,000 dead, about the son he lost, about the 11 months of frustration. He pulls a knife, cuts off Bragadin's right ear. Guards seize the other Venetian officers. They cut off Bragadin's left ear, his nose. They drag the other officers outside and behead them in front of Mustafa's tent. They pile the heads in a mound. Every Christian still in the city, hundreds of people who believed they had safe passage, is massacred. The streets run red again. Bragadin is thrown into a cell. For 2 weeks, he's left there with his wounds rotting, insects crawling over him, infections spreading. Then they drag him out, make him carry sacks of earth and stones around the city walls, while soldiers mock him. They hang him from the mast of a galley and dunk him in the sea while sailors laugh. And then on August 17th, in the main square of Famagusta, in front of the Cathedral of St. Nicholas, now renamed Lala Mustafa Pasha Mosque, in honor of the conqueror, they tie Bragadin naked to a column, and they skin him alive. Slowly, methodically, starting at the extremities and working inward while he prays the Miserere, "Have mercy on me, O God." His voice growing weaker, his body convulsing in agony beyond human description. When he finally dies, they quarter his body, distribute the pieces as trophies, stuff his skin with straw and cotton, dress it in his military uniform and insignia, and parade it through the streets on an ox while the crowd cheers. Then they tie it to the mast of Mustafa Pasha's personal galley and sail for Constantinople, where it will be presented to the Sultan as a gift. The message is clear. This is what happens to those who resist the Ottoman Empire. But Mustafa Pasha has miscalculated catastrophically. Because news travels. And when the story reaches Europe, when the details spread from port to port, city to city, when people hear exactly how Marc Antonio Bragadin died, everything changes. In Rome, Pope Pius V hears the news and weeps not just from sorrow, but from fury. He's a Dominican friar who became Pope Michele Ghislieri, born into poverty, risen through faith and intellect and absolute conviction. He's austere, severe, utterly committed to defending Christendom. He's been trying since 1566 to form a holy league against the Ottomans. For 5 years, he's begged, cajoled, threatened, negotiated. And for 5 years, the Christian powers have found excuses. Not anymore. When the story of Bragadin spreads, something shifts in European consciousness. This isn't about territorial disputes or commercial rivalry anymore. It's personal. It's visceral. The skinned corpse becomes a symbol proof of Ottoman savagery. Proof that negotiation is pointless. Proof that either Christian Europe fights or Christian Europe dies. On May 25th, 1571, months before Bragadin's execution, but after the fall of Nicosia, the Holy League is finally officially formed. Spain, Venice, the Papal States, Genoa, Savoy, the Knights of Malta, Tuscany, Parma, Urbino, they sign a treaty committing to a combined fleet. 200 galleys, 100 supply vessels, 50,000 men. The costs will be shared. Spain pays half, Venice a third, the Pope a sixth. But there's a critical problem. Who commands? The Venetians don't trust the Spanish. Centuries of rivalry, competing colonial interests, mutual contempt. Sebastiano Venier, the Venetian fleet commander, is 75 years old, tough as iron, and he thinks the Spanish are arrogant cowards who abandoned Venice to fight alone for decades. The Spanish think the Venetians are weak, incompetent, responsible for losing Cyprus in the first place. They point out that Venice made separate peace deals with the Ottomans in the past, betraying alliances. Why trust them now? The Genoese hate the Venetians' commercial rivals for control of Mediterranean trade. The Knights of Malta are brave but small in number. The papal forces are well equipped but limited. Everyone wants someone else to do the fighting. The solution: Don Juan de Austria. Born February 24th, 1547, in Regensburg, Germany, the illegitimate son of Holy Roman Emperor Charles V and a burgher's daughter named Barbara Blomberg. Raised in secret because bastards, even royal ones, are complications. His mother is paid off, sent away. The boy is given to servants, told nothing about his parentage. He grows up knowing he's different, but not why. After Charles V dies in 1558, King Philip II of Spain, Charles's legitimate son and heir, acknowledges the boy as his half-brother, gives him a household, an education, a name Don Juan de Austria. There's talk of making him a priest, pushing him into the church where inconvenient royalty can be safely stored. But the boy has other ideas. He wants glory. He wants to fight. He wants to be a hero. Philip gives in. Don Juan fights Moorish pirates in the Mediterranean, crushes the Morisco rebellion in Granada with brutal efficiency, forcing the deportation of an entire population, a decision that haunts him later when he sees the human cost. But he proves himself capable, brave, charismatic. At 24, he's young, handsome, charming, not threatening to the older admirals because he's untested in major command, not Spanish enough to anger the Italians, not Italian enough to anger the Spanish. He's a compromise candidate everyone can tolerate. More importantly, he's hungry. This is his chance to step out of his brother's shadow, to become a legend, to prove that the bastard son can match or exceed the achievements of legitimate princes. So in August 1571, Don Juan arrives at Messina, Sicily, where the Holy League fleet is assembling. And what he finds is chaos. The Spanish galleys arrive first, sleek, new, heavily armed with modern cannons, but undermanned because Philip II is paranoid about the cost and reluctant to commit too many troops. The crews are professional, but there aren't enough of them. Then come the Venetians, 105 galleys, packed with soldiers who've lost friends and family at Cyprus. They've seen the reports from Famagusta. They know how Bragadin died. They're not here for politics or glory. They're here for blood, for revenge. Their ships are older, more worn, but their crews are experienced and absolutely committed. The papal galleys bring priests, Jesuits, Dominicans, Franciscans, Capuchins who move through the fleet distributing rosaries, hearing confessions, preaching that God fights on their side, that this is a holy war, that death in battle against the infidel guarantees salvation. The Genoese bring their commercial galleys converted for war, manned by hard sailors who know every current and wind pattern in the Mediterranean. The Knights of Malta bring their fanaticism and their skilled warrior monks who've been fighting Muslims for centuries, who literally live for this. And scattered among the fleet are volunteers from across Europe, German mercenaries, Italian noblemen seeking glory, the Spanish hidalgos, young men looking for adventure, old men settling scores, a Spanish soldier named Miguel de Cervantes, feverish with malaria, who insists on fighting despite his illness because missing this battle would be missing history. By late August, Don Juan has assembled 206 galleys and 6 galleasses. The galleasses are Venice's secret weapon, massive converted merchant ships, each carrying over 40 heavy cannons. They're slow, unwieldy, have to be towed into position by regular galleys. But they're floating fortresses. The Ottoman spies who see them report back that they're supply ships, transport vessels non-threatening. That intelligence failure will cost the Ottomans everything. Don Juan trains the fleet, drills them on formations, boarding tactics, artillery coordination. He visits every ship personally, meeting commanders, building relationships, earning loyalty. He's charming, energetic, optimistic. He makes them believe they can win. But the coalition is fragile. National rivalries simmer beneath the surface. On October 2nd, a fight breaks out on a Venetian ship. Sebastiano Venier hangs several of the troublemakers to restore discipline. Some of them were Spanish soldiers. Don Juan is furious. He threatens to hang Venier in retaliation. The two commanders nearly come to blows. The fleet almost tears itself apart before it even sees combat. Then, on October 4th, everything changes. A lone Venetian frigate appears from the south, sailing from Crete. It brings news Famagusta has fallen. The garrison is dead. And Bragadin, they describe how he died in detail. The torture, the flaying, the skin stuffed with straw. The bickering stops instantly, completely. The Venetians are shaking with rage. Sebastiano Venier, old, tough, seen everything, has tears running down his weathered face. His captains are demanding immediate action. They'll sail alone if necessary. Revenge isn't negotiable. It's oxygen. Don Juan makes his decision. They sail east. They're going to find the Ottoman fleet. They're going to destroy it or die trying. The fleet leaves Messina on September 16th. rose through rough seas toward Corfu. By September 27th, they've covered 240 miles in 10 days, a remarkable feat for a fleet this size. Don Juan sends scouts ahead, 4 fast galleys under the Hospitallers, to locate the Ottoman fleet. The scouts find devastation. Ottoman raiding parties have hit Corfu, Zante, other Venetian holdings. Villages burned, people enslaved. The raids are fresh. The Turks are close. The question is where, meanwhile? In the fortified port of Lepanto, the Venetian name for Nafpaktos, on the northern shore of the Gulf of Patras, the Ottoman fleet is gathering. Muezzinzadeh Ali Pasha commands. He's the son of a muezzin, a mosque official who calls the faithful to prayer. He's risen through the Ottoman system, through ability and loyalty. He's young, probably in his 30s, ambitious. He commanded the naval forces during the Cyprus campaign, transporting troops, maintaining the blockade. He's brave, capable, but primarily a soldier, not a naval tactician. His experience is in land warfare sieges, infantry assaults, logistics. But he carries the sacred banner, the banner of the caliphs, a massive green silk flag with verses from the Quran embroidered in gold thread. The name of Allah appears on it 28,900 times, each one meticulously sewn by hand. This banner has never been captured in battle. It represents divine favor, invincibility. Most Ottomans believe that as long as the banner flies, they cannot lose. Sultan Selim II has personally entrusted Ali Pasha with this relic. The message is clear: do not fail. Bring glory. Crush the infidels. Ali Pasha's fleet is formidable. Estimates vary, but he has between 250 and 280 galleys and smaller galleots, 31,000 soldiers, including 10,000 janissaries, the elite infantry that forms the backbone of Ottoman military power, 50,000 oarsmen and sailors, 750 cannons. His subordinate commanders are experienced. Uluh Ali, the Pasha of Algiers, is a former Christian slave who converted to Islam and became one of the most feared corsairs in the Mediterranean. He's cunning, ruthless, a survivor. He commands the left wing of the fleet, the southernmost position toward open water. Mohammed Sirocco, also called Sirocco, is the governor of Alexandria. He commands the Egyptian squadron and the right wing of the fleet, the northernmost position near the shore. Ali Pasha himself commands the center. His flagship is the Sultana, a massive galley bristling with troops. The Ottoman fleet has been raiding the Greek coast for weeks, burning Venetian outposts, capturing supplies, keeping the pressure on. They're based at Lepanto because it's a perfect naval fortress, protected by 2 fortresses on opposing sides of the narrow entrance to the Gulf of Corinth. The Ottomans can shelter there, resupply, then strike wherever they choose. When Ali Pasha learns that the Holy League fleet is approaching, there's debate among his commanders about what to do. The older, more cautious voices urge withdrawal. It's late in the season, October. Storms are coming. Autumn in the Mediterranean can be deadly for low-slung galleys. Why risk the entire fleet in one battle? Better to winter at Lepanto. Let the Christian coalition collapse under its own internal conflicts. rebuild and strike in the spring when weather favors them. But Ali Pasha is young, confident, freshly victorious from Cyprus. His spies have given him intelligence that the Christian fleet is smaller than it actually is. They've undercounted by 50 ships. More critically, they've reported that those 6 strange large vessels are merchantmen or supply ships, not warships. Ali Pasha thinks he's facing a weaker, poorly coordinated enemy. He's also under pressure. The Sultan expects victory. The sacred banner demands glory. And there's a psychological factor. The Ottomans have dominated Mediterranean naval warfare for decades. They've won at Preveza in 1538, crushing a Christian fleet. They've raided with impunity. Why fear this coalition? So Ali Pasha makes his decision. He'll sail out, meet the Christians in open water, crush them in a single decisive battle. The news will reach Constantinople. The Sultan will reward him. His name will be remembered alongside the great admirals of Ottoman history. On the evening of October 6th, the Ottoman fleet prepares to leave Lepanto. Soldiers sharpen scimitars. Janissaries check their muskets. Archers inspect their bows. The mood is confident. These are men who've never lost a major fleet engagement, who've conquered Cyprus, who believe God is on their side. They don't know they're sailing into history's greatest galley battle. They don't know that by sunset tomorrow, most of them will be dead. October 7th, 1571. Dawn breaks over the Gulf of Patras. The Holy League fleet has spent the night anchored near the Curzalari Islands. Don Juan has been awake most of the night, consulting with his commanders, finalizing plans. At 6 in the morning, the fleet begins to move. 206 galleys, 6 galleys, thousands of men rowing in rhythm, the sound of oars hitting water like a vast heartbeat. As they round the southern point of the strait between Oxia Island and the mainland, they see it, the Ottoman fleet stretching across the water like a crescent moon, 5 miles from wing to wing. Hundreds of ships. The sight is overwhelming, terrifying, magnificent. For a moment, both fleets just stare. Everyone understands what's about to happen. This isn't a raid or a skirmish. This is Armageddon, the largest concentration of naval power in the Mediterranean since ancient times. Over 450 warships, 80,000 men, most of whom will not survive the day. Don Juan moves through his flagship, the Real. He's wearing full armor despite the heat. He holds a crucifix aloft as he visits ship after ship in a small boat, rowing between galleys, rallying the men. He orders Mass celebrated on every vessel. Priests move through the fleet distributing communion wafers. Soldiers confess their sins. Some weep. Others pray silently. Many sharpen weapons with grim determination. And then Don Juan does something brilliant. He orders the rams removed from the Christian galleys. The ram, the bronze-sheathed prow designed to smash into enemy hulls, is the symbol of galley warfare. Its removal sends an unmistakable message: we're not running. There's no retreat. We win here or we die here. Every man in the fleet understands. This is total commitment. The Christian fleet forms into 4 divisions. The center is commanded by Don Juan himself, 62 galleys with the reel at the heart. A massive galley carrying 300 rowers and 400 fighting men. On either side of Don Juan are the papal commander Marc Antonio Colonna and the Venetian Sebastiano Venier. These three flagships will be the anvil against which the battle is decided. The left wing, the northern flank, is commanded by Agostino Barbarigo. 53 Venetian galleys pressed close to the shore to prevent the Ottomans from outflanking them and attacking from the land side. This is the most vulnerable position because Mohammed Sirocco will try to sweep around them using the shallows. The right wing, the southern flank, is commanded by Giovanni Andrea Doria, the Genoese admiral. 53 galleys stretching toward open water. This position requires skill and mobility because Uluch Ali, the crafty corsair, will try to outflank them and attack from the seaward side. The reserve is commanded by the Marquis de Santa Cruz. Alvaro de Bazan, 38 galleys held back behind the center, ready to plug gaps, reinforce weak points, or exploit opportunities. But the true innovation is the galleys. Don Juan orders them towed into position ahead of the main line, 2 in front of the center, 2 in front of the left wing, 2 in front of the right wing. They're clumsy, slow, have to be dragged by regular galleys using cables. It takes time, precious time. But once they're in position, they become the trap. Across the water, Ali Pasha sees the Christian formation taking shape. His own fleet is arrayed in the traditional crescent, designed to envelop the enemy, attack from multiple angles simultaneously. His center is the strongest 96 galleys, commanded personally by him, the sacred banner flying from the Sultana's main mast. His right wing under Mohammed Sirocco has about 63 galleys, tasked with crushing the Christian left and then rolling up the line. His left wing under Uluch Ali has about 90 galleys, with orders to outflank the Christian right. It's a formation that has won battles for centuries, attack the flanks, collapse them inward, encircle the center, destroy it. But Ali Pasha makes his critical error. He sees those 6 large ships ahead of the Christian line and thinks supply vessels, transports. Maybe they're carrying extra soldiers or equipment, but they're not warships. They're not a threat. His captains agree. The intelligence report said they were merchantmen. No one questions it. So the Ottoman fleet surges forward, oars thrashing, drums beating a rhythm that can be heard for miles, soldiers chanting, janissaries firing their muskets into the air. The crescent begins to close. And at 10:20 in the morning, the galleys open fire. The sound is like the earth splitting open. 40 heavy cannons firing simultaneously from the first galleass. 50-pound iron balls screaming through the air at close range. The effect on wooden galleys is catastrophic. The first Ottoman galley struck simply disintegrates. The cannonball punches through the bow, tears through the rowers' benches, exits through the stern. The ship breaks apart and sinks within seconds. Men are thrown into the water, screaming, drowning, crushed by debris. The second and third Ottoman galleys veer away in panic. But the galleass adjusts its aim. Unlike a regular galley, which can only fire forward from bow-mounted guns, a galleass can fire in all directions. The oarsmen use their oars to pivot the ship, bringing different gun batteries to bear. Broadside cannons roar. More Ottoman galleys are hit. Hulls splinter. Masts topple. Men are cut in half by flying splinters of wood acting like shrapnel. The other 5 galleys open fire. The Gulf of Patras fills with thunder and smoke. Ottoman galleys trying to approach are shredded by converging fields of artillery fire. It's like charging into a meat grinder. Ali Pasha realizes his catastrophic mistake. These aren't supply ships, they're weapons platforms. Floating fortresses designed to break his formation before the main battle even begins. He orders the fleet to split, to flow around the galleys like water around rocks. But splitting costs time, costs momentum, costs cohesion. His perfect crescent begins to fray. The galleys keep firing. They're slow, can barely maneuver under their own power, but they don't need to. They're walls, and the Ottoman fleet is breaking against them. By the time the main Ottoman line reaches the Christian galleys, they've already taken serious casualties, and their formation is disrupted. Instead of hitting the Christian line as a unified crescent, they arrive in ragged groups, piecemeal, disorganized. And that's when the real slaughter begins. At approximately 10:30, the first Christian and Ottoman galleys collide. The battle explodes across 5 miles of water. This isn't like modern naval warfare. There are no long-range missiles, no aircraft, no radar-guided guns. This is close quarters, brutal, personal. Galleys ram each other at rowing speed about 7 to 8 knots. The impact throws men to the deck. Grappling hooks fly through the air, biting into wood, pulling ships together. Soldiers pour across the gap, fighting on decks slick with blood. Arquebuses, the early muskets of the period, fire at point-blank range. A soldier steps forward, levels his weapon at an enemy 10 feet away, pulls the trigger. The matchlock ignites the powder. The gun roars. The enemy's chest explodes. Before he can reload, a process taking 30 seconds or more, an Ottoman soldier has reached him with a scimitar. Blades clash. Men grapple or fall. The archers fire clouds of arrows that darken the sky. Crossbow bolts punch through armor. Hand-thrown bombs, ceramic vessels filled with gunpowder, and metal fragments explode on crowded decks, tearing flesh, starting fires. Within minutes, it's absolute chaos. There are no clean formation lines anymore. Ships are locked together in clusters of 3, 4, 5 vessels, creating floating battlefields where hundreds of men fight and die. The wounded fall into the water and drown. The dead are thrown overboard to make room for more fighting. The sea between the fleets turns red. On the northern flank, Barbarigo's Venetians engage Muhammad Sirocco's wing. Sirocco tries the classic Ottoman maneuver: sweep around the Christian flank using the shallows near shore. Attack from the side and rear. But Barbarigo anticipates this. He presses his ships so close to the coastline that there's no room for Sirocco to maneuver around him. The gap closes. There's nowhere to run. It becomes a straight-up infantry brawl. Venetian soldiers, many of them from Crete and the Dalmatian coast, areas that have been ravaged by Ottoman raids, are fighting with pure fury. They're screaming Famagusta Bragadin as they board Ottoman galleys. They're not taking prisoners. They're not showing quarter. This is revenge, raw and terrible. Barbarigo himself stands on the deck of his flagship, clearly visible in his armor, directing the assault. An Ottoman archer sees him, draws, releases. The arrow hits Barbarigo in the left eye, punching through the socket and into his brain. He staggers, blood streaming down his face, but refuses to fall, refuses to leave the battle. His officers surround him, but he waves them away, continuing to shout orders even as blood streams down his face. His men see this and fight even harder. They pour onto Mohammed Sirocco's flagship. The Egyptian governor fights bravely but is overwhelmed. He's wounded, captured, and in the heat of battle, executed on the spot. His death breaks the morale of the right wing. Ottoman galleys begin to falter, to retreat, to beach themselves on the shore, trying to escape. Christian soldiers follow them into the shallows, boarding beached vessels, massacring the crews. The entire Ottoman right wing collapses within 90 minutes. In the center, the decisive moment arrives. Don Juan's flagship, the Real, and Ali Pasha's flagship, the Sultana, sight each other across the chaos. Both commanders know instinctively, whoever wins this personal duel wins the battle. These flagships carry the honor and morale of their entire fleets. Their fates are linked to the fates of thousands. The ships close oars, thrashing water, men lining the rails, weapons ready, arquebuses firing, arrows whistling through the air, cannons roaring. Then, the impact. The Real and Sultana crash together with a sound like trees breaking. The bronze rams crumple. Wood splinters. Both crews are thrown to the deck by the force of collision. And instantly, before anyone can recover, the soldiers from both sides are scrambling onto the opposing ship. Spanish infantry trained, professional, carrying arquebuses and Toledo swords pour onto the Sultana. Janissaries, the elite of Ottoman forces, forbidden to marry, loyal only to the Sultan, meet them with scimitars and muskets. For an hour, the fight seesaws back and forth across the deck. Neither side can gain advantage. Spanish reinforcements arrive from nearby galleys that have fought their way through to support their commander. Ottoman reinforcements do the same. At one point, 7 ships are locked together, a writhing mass of wood and flesh and steel. Thousands of men fighting in a space of a few hundred square feet. Don Juan himself fights in the melee. He's wearing ornate armor, but he's not standing back giving orders. He's in the thick of it, sword in hand, rallying his men. Ali Pasha is doing the same on the Sultana, standing beneath the sacred banner, shouting commands, inspiring his janissaries to hold. The battle hangs in perfect balance. The Real is taking heavy casualties. So is the Sultana. Men are dying by the dozen every minute. The decks are piled with bodies. Blood makes the footing treacherous. The air is thick with smoke and the screams of wounded men. And then, through the chaos, a single musket shot. A Spanish arquebusier, his name is lost to history, sees Ali Pasha through the smoke, takes aim, fires. The heavy lead ball strikes Ali Pasha in the head. The Ottoman admiral stumbles, blood pouring from the wound, and collapses to the deck. A Spanish soldier named Giovanni Contarini sees him fall, rushes forward through the fighting, and beheads the dying admiral with his sword. He grabs the head, lifts it high, and mounts it on a pike at the bow of the sultana. The psychological effect is instantaneous and total. Ottoman sailors and soldiers see their commander's head on a pike. They see the sacred banner of the caliphs being torn down by Christian hands, the banner that has never been captured, the symbol of divine favor, the proof of invincibility. It's all a lie. Resistance on the sultana collapses. Men throw down their weapons. Some jump into the sea, preferring to drown rather than be captured. The sultana is taken in tow by the reel. The center of the Ottoman line disintegrates like sand. Ships that were fighting fiercely suddenly lose heart. Commanders who were pressing attacks suddenly retreat. The news spreads across the battle like wildfire. Ali Pasha is dead. The banner is taken. The fleet is broken. On the southern flank, Ulugh Ali, the crafty corsair from Algiers, is the only Ottoman commander having any success. He skillfully feints against Giovanni Andrea Doria's right wing, drawing the Genoese admiral out toward open water, creating a gap in the Christian line. Then he reverses course and drives through the gap, attacking the Knights of Malta from the flank and rear. The knights fight with suicidal bravery. They're outnumbered, surrounded, taking horrific casualties. Their galleys are being overwhelmed, but they refuse to surrender. They're warrior monks who've spent their entire lives preparing for exactly this, to die fighting Muslims. They hold long enough for the reserves to arrive. Santa Cruz sees the crisis developing. He's been held back behind the center, waiting for exactly this moment. Now he commits his 38 galleys, smashing into Ulugh Ali's rear. The trap snaps shut. Ulugh Ali is no fool. He's a survivor. He spent his life escaping impossible situations. He sees that Ali Pasha is dead. The center has collapsed. The battle is lost. He's not going to die for someone else's glory. He breaks off, cutting his way out of the encirclement with about 30 to 40 galleys, and runs south toward open water. Don Juan could pursue, but he doesn't. It's 2 in the afternoon. The battle has been raging for nearly 4 hours. His men are exhausted. A storm is building on the horizon. He can see the dark clouds, feel the wind shifting. Galleys are low-slung vessels, vulnerable to rough seas. Pursuing into a storm would risk losing ships to weather rather than combat, so he lets Ulugh Ali escape and orders the fleet to secure their victory. By 2 in the afternoon, the Battle of Lepanto is over. The Gulf of Patras is choked with wreckage and bodies. The Ottomans have lost between 130 and 180 galleys captured intact or sunk. Only 30 to 40 ships escaped with Ulugh Ali. The rest are burning, sinking, drifting with dead crews. Ottoman casualties are staggering, 20 to 30,000 dead, wounded, or captured. Entire regiments of janissaries have been wiped out. The flower of Ottoman naval power lies on the bottom of the Gulf, or in Christian chains. The Holy League has lost 12 to 20 galleys, 7,500 dead, 22,000 wounded. It's a butcher's bill, but compared to the devastation inflicted on the Ottomans, it's a victory beyond anyone's wildest expectations. 12,000 Christian galley slaves are freed from captured Ottoman ships These are men who've been chained to rowing benches for months or years. Venetians, Spanish, Sicilians, Greeks. They emerge, blinking into sunlight, skeletal, covered in sores, weeping. Many fall to their knees and kiss the decks. Some are so weak they die within hours of liberation, their bodies finally giving out after achieving freedom. Among the wounded is Miguel de Cervantes. He's taken 2 musket balls, one in the chest, one through his left hand, permanently crippling it. He'll recover, but his hand will be useless for the rest of his life. Later, he'll write that he lost it for the glory of the right hand, meaning his good hand could still write. Decades later, he'll use his memories of Lepanto to inform his masterpiece, Don Quixote. The mad knight who refuses to accept that the age of chivalry is dead is partly inspired by Don Juan, the last knight of Europe charging into battle with a crucifix held high. But that's the future. Right now, in October 1571, Cervantes is lying on a deck, being treated by a ship surgeon who's seen hundreds of wounded men today and is working on pure mechanical exhaustion. Don Juan doesn't pursue the fleeing remnants of the Ottoman fleet. A storm is coming. He can see it building. Instead, he orders the captured ships towed to safety and directs the fleet to anchor at the island of Pedales, about 5 miles north. That night, as the wind rises and the sea grows rough, the survivors tend their wounds and bury their dead. The water around Pedales is too deep for burial at sea in the traditional sense, so bodies are weighted and dropped overboard. They sink into the darkness, joining the thousands already on the seafloor. But they've won against overwhelming historical precedent, against the most powerful navy in the world, against the myth of Ottoman invincibility that has terrorized Europe for 2 centuries. They've won. News of Lepanto spreads across Europe like lightning jumping from cloud to cloud. A fast galley reaches Venice on October 18th. The messenger runs through the streets, shouting the news. Church bells begin to ring within minutes. The entire city knows. People pour into the Piazza San Marco, weeping, laughing, embracing strangers. Venetians have lost friends and family at Cyprus, have lived in fear of Ottoman raids for generations. This victory feels like deliverance. In Rome, Pope Pius V hears the news on October 22nd. According to legend, he was working in his study when he suddenly stood, walked to the window, and announced that the Christian fleet had won a great victory. Whether this is true or pious invention, the official news arrives shortly after. Pius orders a day of thanksgiving. He institutes the Feast of Our Lady of Victory, later renamed the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, to be celebrated every October 7th. He credits the victory to the prayers of the faithful who recited the Rosary while the battle raged. In Madrid, King Philip II receives the news with characteristic restraint. He's pleased, certainly, but cautious. He knows the Ottomans will rebuild. He knows the victory is more symbolic than strategic. But he also knows his half-brother has just become the most famous man in Europe. Don Juan de Austria becomes an instant legend. At 24, he's the hero who saved Christendom. Poems are written about him. Paintings commissioned. Women send him love letters. Kings and princes want to meet him. The Pope calls him a man sent by God. G. K. Chesterton will later dub him the last knight of Europe in his epic poem Lepanto. For a brief, shining moment, Don Juan is the most celebrated person in the Christian world. But fame is fleeting, and politics is brutal. Philip II, always suspicious, always calculating, begins to worry that his bastard half-brother is becoming too popular, too powerful, too independent. He denies Don Juan permission to launch follow-up campaigns against the Ottomans. He sends him instead to the Netherlands to put down the Dutch revolt, a grinding, thankless task that will destroy Don Juan's health and reputation. In 1578, at the age of 31, Don Juan will die of typhus in a tent outside Namur, delirious and broken. His last words reportedly being that he never had a foot of land he could call his own. But that's years away. In October 1571, he's a hero. The broader strategic impact of Lepanto is more complicated than the celebrations suggest. The Holy League begins to fracture almost immediately. Spain and Venice return to their old rivalries. The Pope tries to organize a follow-up campaign to capitalize on the victory, but enthusiasm fades. Plans to seize the Dardanelles, to push toward Constantinople, to liberate Christian lands under Ottoman rule, all of it dissolves in bickering and mutual suspicion. The Ottomans, meanwhile, rebuild with astonishing speed. The Grand Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha supervises a massive construction program. Within 6 months, the Ottoman arsenals have produced 250 new galleys, including 8 galleys copied from the Venetian design. By 1572, the Ottoman fleet is larger than it was before Lepanto. Sokolu Mehmed famously tells the Venetian ambassador, "You come to see how we bear our misfortune, but I would have you know the difference between your loss and ours. In wresting Cyprus from you, we deprived you of an arm. In defeating our fleet, you have only shaved our beard. An arm, when cut off, cannot grow again, but a shaved beard will grow all the better for the razor. It's bravado, but there's truth in it. The Ottomans have the resources, the manpower, the industrial capacity to rebuild. They're a vast empire, with access to timber from the Black Sea forests, iron from Anatolian mines, sailors from Egypt and North Africa. Venice is exhausted, nearly bankrupt, unable to sustain a long war. In 1573, Venice signs a separate peace treaty with the Ottomans, formally ceding Cyprus and agreeing to pay increased tribute. The other members of the Holy League feel betrayed, but they understand Venice can't fight alone. The coalition that briefly united to win Lepanto has already dissolved. So if the Ottomans rebuilt so fast, if the Holy League fell apart, if Cyprus stayed Ottoman for 3 centuries, if the strategic situation barely changed, why does Lepanto matter? Because it shattered a myth. And myths matter more than we often admit. For 200 years, the Ottoman Empire had seemed inevitable, an inexorable force of history. Every major battle went their way. Constantinople fell. Hungary fell. Cyprus fell. The pattern was clear: the Ottomans advance, and Christendom retreats. The question wasn't if they would conquer Europe, but when. Lepanto broke that narrative. It proved the Ottomans could be beaten in a major fleet engagement. It proved that European technology, specifically the galleys design and superior artillery, could overcome Ottoman numerical superiority. It proved that when Christian Europe united, even briefly, it could match the Ottoman war machine. The psychological impact resonated for generations. European confidence grew. Ottoman aura of invincibility faded. The tide hadn't turned dramatically, but it had stopped advancing quite so relentlessly, and Lepanto marked the end of an era in naval warfare. It was the last great battle fought primarily with oar-powered vessels. The galleys had proven the future belonged to sailing ships with heavy broadside artillery. Within a generation, Mediterranean naval warfare would transform, and Europe, with its Atlantic shipyards and tradition of ocean sailing, would dominate that transformation in ways the Ottomans, focused on galley warfare in inland seas, could not match. The real legacy of Lepanto isn't what happened in the months after the battle. It's what happened over the next century. Ottoman expansion into Europe slowed, then stopped, then reversed. The empire remained powerful, remained a threat, but the sense of unstoppable momentum was gone. European powers began to push back. The long Ottoman decline had begun, though it would take centuries to fully unfold. And there's one final piece to this story, one final closing of the circle. Remember Mark Antonio Bragadin, the man whose flayed skin started all of this. In 1580, 9 years after Lepanto, a young Venetian sailor named Girolamo Polidori is in Constantinople. He hears that Bragadin's skin is kept as a trophy in the Ottoman arsenal, and he decides to steal it. It's insane. The arsenal is heavily guarded. Discovery means torture and death. But Polidori is determined. He breaks in, finds the stuffed skin hanging among other trophies, cuts it down, and smuggles it out of Constantinople. He brings it back to Venice, where he's received as a hero. The skin is cleaned, preserved, and installed in the church of San Gregorio. Later, it's moved to the Basilica of Santi Giovanni e Paolo, where it remains to this day. Bragadin is venerated as a martyr. His death, horrific, brutal, meant to terrorize instead, became a symbol of resistance, of courage, of refusal to surrender, even in the face of overwhelming cruelty. The Ottomans thought they were sending a message. They did just not the one they intended. Let's talk about contemporary parallels, because Lepanto teaches lessons that echo through every conflict. Think about intelligence failures. Ottomans thought galleys were supply ships. Modern every underestimated weapon. Tanks, WWI, carriers World War II, drones Ukraine. Dismissing new technology kills. Think about the psychological warfare. Bragadin's flaying unified Europe. Modern every atrocity that backfires. 9/11 unified West. ISIS beheadings strengthened resolve. Cruelty can inspire resistance. Think about coalition warfare. Holy League fragile, rivalries bitter. Modern every alliance. NATO disagreements. Coalition Iraq. Unity temporary. Self-interest permanent. Think about the overconfidence. Ali Pasha believed invincibility. Modern every complacent power. French Maginot Line. U.S. Vietnam. Past success doesn't guarantee future victory. Think about technological advantage. Gallus's multiplied firepower. Modern every force multiplier. Precision weapons. Stealth. Cyber warfare. Technology changes balances. Think about the personal leadership. Don Juan, 24. Commanding veterans. Modern young leaders succeed. Kennedy, 43 president. Zuckerberg built Facebook, 19. Age doesn't determine ability. Think about the RAM removal. No retreat possible. Modern burning bridges. Commitment devices. Sherman burning Atlanta. Cortez sinking ships. Forcing commitment. Think about the morale collapse. Sacred banner captured. Resistance ended. Modern symbols matter. Flags. Statues. Icons. Destroying symbols breaks will. Think about the rapid rebuilding. Ottomans rebuilt fleet 6 months. Modern industrial capacity matters. Germany, WWI. Japan, WWIC. Production determines sustainability. Think about the strategic versus tactical. One battle. Lost strategic advantage shortly. Modern Vietnam. Every battle won. War lost. Tactical success is not equal to strategic victory. Think about the myth breaking. Invincibility shattered. Modern, every upset. U.S. Hockey, 1980. Leicester City. Underdog victories change psychology. Think about the slave liberation. 12,000 freed galley slaves. Modern, every POW liberation. Concentration camps. Gulags. Freedom for captives. Emotional. Think about the wound legacy. Cervantes' crippled hand. Modern veterans wounded. Every war creates disabled. Physical cost continues. Think about the fame's fleeting nature. Don Juan hero, then forgotten. Modern every fallen hero. War celebrities fade. Public memory short. Think about the separate peace. Venice, abandoned alliance, 1573. Modern, every coalition defection. France, NATO. Partners change. Alliances temporary. Think about the industrial response. Ottomans copied galleys. Modern every arms race. Nuclear weapons spread. Tech copying. Innovation triggers competition. Think about the sectarian division. Christian versus Muslim. Modern every religious conflict. Shia versus Sunni. Hindu versus Muslim. Faith divides. Think about the mercenary use. German soldiers. Genoese sailors. Modern contractors. PMCs. Outsourcing violence continues. Think about the religious motivation. Priests blessed fleet. Rosaries distributed. Modern chaplains. Ideology. Faith motivates soldiers. Think about the decapitation strike. Killing Ali Pasha broke fleet. Modern targeted killings. Soleimani. Bin Laden. Leadership targeting decisive. Think about the escape decision. Uluk Ali survived. Lived to fight. Modern knowing when to retreat. Tactical withdrawal preserves force. So what's the final lesson of Lepanto? 1571. It's this. Symbols matter as much as strategy. Bragadin's flayed skin did more to unite Europe than any diplomatic negotiation. The sacred banner's capture broke Ottoman morale more than losing ships. Wars are fought with steel, but won in minds. Lepanto teaches us that technological surprise wins battles. Galleys, unexpected, devastating. Modern parallels every innovation. Machine guns, WWI, Blitzkrieg, VV2I, precision weapons today. Innovation advantage, temporary, but decisive. Lepanto teaches us that intelligence failures are fatal. Ottomans misidentified galleys, paid with fleet. Modern every strategic surprise. Pearl Harbor, Tet Offensive, 9/11. Not seeing threats kills. Lepanto teaches us that coalitions are fragile. Holy League united briefly, fractured quickly. Modern every alliance tested. Maintaining unity harder than achieving it. Lepanto teaches us that myths shape reality. Ottoman invincibility myth kept Europe divided. Breaking myth changed psychology, enabled resistance. Perception is power. Lepanto teaches us that revenge motivates. Famagusta Bragadin drove Venetians. Modern every vendetta. 9/11 response. Retaliatory strikes. Vengeance, powerful motivator. Lepanto teaches us that rapid adaptation matters. Ottomans rebuilt 6 months. Modern resilience, crucial. Economies recover. Militaries rebuild. Bouncing back determines survival. Lepanto teaches us that personal courage inspires. Barbarigo, arrow through eye, kept fighting. Modern every hero story. Audie Murphy, Desmond Doss. Individual courage multiplies. Lepanto teaches us that commitment devices work. ROM removal forced engagement. Modern public commitments. Treaties. Announcements. Limiting options focuses effort. Lepanto teaches us that industrial capacity beats battlefield brilliance. Ottomans lost battle, but rebuilt fleet. Modern production matters. World War II won factories, not just battles. Economics determines sustainability. Lepanto teaches us that overconfidence kills. Ali Pasha, underestimated enemy. Modern every upset. Assume weakness. Get crushed. Respect opponents. Lepanto teaches us that timing is everything. October, late season. Storms coming. Modern windows of opportunity. Operational timing crucial. Weather. Seasons matter. Lepanto teaches us that innovations spread. Galleys copied by Ottomans. Modern every technological advance. Jets. Missiles. Drones proliferate. Can't keep advantages forever. Lepanto teaches us that psychological victories outlast tactical ones. Ottomans rebuilt, but myth broken. Modern morale matters. Breaking enemy will to fight wins wars. Lepanto teaches us that martyrs inspire more than victories. Bragadin's death unified Europe more than any victory would. Modern martyrdom, powerful. Melk. Gandhi deaths inspired movements. The defenders of Christendom, the 80,000 who rode into Lepanto most, didn't survive, but changed history. Critics ask, Did Lepanto matter strategically if Ottomans rebuilt? Venice surrendered. Cyprus stayed Ottoman, yes. Because it proved the impossible was possible. Because it shattered a myth. Because it changed what people believed. What we know. On October 7th, 1571, a fractured coalition defeated the world's superpower. Through technological innovation, galleys, personal leadership, Don Juan, and desperate courage fighting for Bragadin's revenge, they won the unwinnable. Strategic situation barely changed, but psychological landscape transformed completely. Ottoman invincibility gone. European defeatism broken. That shift took generations to fully manifest, but Lepanto was the turning point. If this exploration changed how you see history, subscribe to Maproom Battles. Comment, what myth needs breaking today? Thanks for studying the real turning points. Remember, myths shape reality more than we admit. Break the myth. Change the world. Learn from Lepanto.